We're just gonna wait until like 6 more minutes for everyone to join. Today we're gonna be looking at the digestive system, which is on paper 1. So year 9s, you guys will actually be assessed on this coming up. It'll be after Easter. The department hasn't worked out the exact date yet. But year 9s will be assessed on this, but obviously if you're year 10, it will be useful for you because remember, the goal of finishing this year is to make sure that paper 1, you have solid knowledge. So if you're in year 10, this will be relevant, especially since this would have been something that you did in year 9, so it'll be good as a refresher. For those of you who are waiting 5 more minutes, if you go on the website, click on Biology Paper 1, GCSE Biology Paper 1, and scroll down to B3. So I have all of the Paper 1 topics in this section, just with the titles though, because I haven't uploaded the rest. But if you go over to B3, you'll see I've uploaded a bunch of things on OneDrive. I'll mainly be working through what you should have in your notes, so you have something to revise from. If you notice, I have both a Word document in case you want to type it out instead of printing it out and needing to write on it. I'm going to do it via PDF so I can write it on the screen, but feel free to click on the Word document, download that, and type in notes if you'd like. Another thing that you're going to want to go into is, after I explain everything, if you click on lesson 1, you'll see a little activity that I have put up for you to do. This is mainly as a refresher for cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, that kind of thing. A lot of it you should already have background knowledge on, not just from, doing it at GCSE, but you should have some background knowledge just from things like even in primary school, really, or in year 7, you did cells, a little bit in year 8. That should all be as a refresher. So the 2 things that I'm going to work on is what you should have in your notes and the task for later on. So I'll give around 2 minutes for everyone to get those 2 things up and available now. Remember, there's a Word document for you to download, for you to type things in rather than needing to print it out, because printing would probably be quite bad. Okay, let's just make a start then. Right, let me download this so I can write on it. Okay, so just for today, we're going to be looking at the level, what we call in biology, the levels of organization. So over here, you'll see I've done, oops, why can't I draw on this? Hold on, I might have to properly. There we go, I should be able to draw on this now. Okay. So you'll notice that at the very top, I have the levels, what we call the levels of organization, which is basically the order at which things are organized. Ali, you can find the task on the website. The link should be on the YouTube channel, but it's sites.google.com/view/Miss Yay Science. And then if you just press enter on that, on the left-hand side, you'll see GCSE Biology Paper 1. And then if you click on GCSE Biology Paper 1, it'll get to this page, and then we're going to be working on organization and the digestive system. I've just added the link now on in the comment section, in the chat section. Okay, so when it comes to what they're going to be expected, a lot of times they would have like fill in the blanks, like say fill in this levels of organization, and then they would say, for example, leave organs out, and then ask you what would go in there, and then you would have to work out that organs would go in there. So what levels of organization means is when it comes to multicellular organisms, so basically any sort of animals or plants or any living thing that is made up of more than one cell, there needs to be some organization, right? We're not just like an entire blob of cells. There is like a layering. And so this is what the layering is. We start off with specialized cells. Notice that I didn't just write cells and that I said specialized cells. If you think back to year 9 and even in year 7, you would have done some work on knowing about the different types of cells. Can anyone think of maybe a specific specialized cell maybe that you would have learned about in the past? Type it in the comments if you can think of one. Spot on, Tom. Root hair cell. You could also have sperm cells, muscle cells, basically any type of cell. Most cells are specialized besides stem cells. So nearly every single cell is specialized, meaning it looks different. So if you took a cell from one part of your body and compared it to another part of your body, they're not going to look exactly the same because they have different jobs. So when you have a group of specialized cells all working together, you form what is known as a tissue. So if I were to write a proper definition here for what a tissue is, I would say it is a group of similar, sorry about my handwriting, cells working together for a specific function. So when you have tissue, it's all to do with the same type of cell. You have a bunch of them, And because they're the same type of cell, they're all going to be doing the same type of thing. On the left, I have examples of different types of tissues. These are not the only types of tissues. You can have like nerve tissue and things like that. But these are the main three that come up again, like regularly, again and again. We have muscle tissue, we have what's known as glandular tissue, and we have, it's pronounced epithelial tissue. Muscle tissue, you would have hopefully remember back in Key Stage 3. Epithelial, you may have heard of in Key Stage 3, but you may have forgotten because it is quite complicated. Glandular tissue may be new to you. So when it comes to muscle tissue, you hopefully would already know what muscles do, in that they help with movement, but the way they help with movement is that they can contract. So I have a little picture that I've uploaded here because this is what muscle tissue looks like. You'll notice that like each individual little fiber, if I highlight a little fiber here, each individual little fiber, there's another one, they sort of slide over each other to be able to contract. If you imagine, say, if you stack your arm one on top of the other and you slide them in and out, that shows the contraction. That is basically what is going on, how muscles are able to contract to be able to help you move. So they contract to help movement. With glandular tissue, this tissue is mainly any time we want to make and release a substance. So for example, glandular tissue would be like, they would make and release hormones, they would make and release enzymes, they would make and release the acid in your stomach. So anytime we want to make and release something, and in biology, whenever we say something releases, we usually say the word secretes. Whenever we want to secrete some sort of substance, that's usually glandular tissue doing that. And then epithelial tissue, your entire, like, the outer layer of your body is all epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is lining. So your skin, the outer layer of your skin is epithelial tissue, but on the inside, all of your organs is lined with epithelial tissue as well. So this is lining, and it also has organs plus outside of body. So it's not just limited to your skin. There's epithelial tissue on the inside as well, lining your organs. Okay, so what an organ is, the next level of organization. So we had specialized cells all working together to make a tissue, but when you have different types of tissues working together for a function, you get an organ. Different tissues working together for a function. That's what that reads. Notice I said different, because if you have muscle tissue with some more muscle tissue and some more muscle tissue, well, it's just a bigger amount of muscle tissue. It's not an organ yet. So when you have different types of tissues working together, that's when only then is when you get an organ. The two main examples that often come up that get asked would be stomach and the pancreas. So if you think about the stomach, think about what tissues are involved with the stomach. The stomach's function, remember, is to like churn. It churns food. It secretes digestive juices. along with some acid in your stomach. So if it's churning food, if it's mixing, which is what you hear when your stomach is rumbling, that's your stomach contracting, it's probably got to have muscle tissue. That says churn. I want you to have like a think about what other tissue it's going to have. Think about what the stomach does. So what type of tissue do you think it's going to have? If you thought that it might have glandular tissue, that would be correct. Think about the fact that it secretes enzymes, so digestive juices. Plus acid. And it's also going to have a lining on the inside, right? Because, you know, inside your stomach is a bunch of acid. We want some sort of lining in there to protect. So, epithelial lining. There is one condition that some people might develop, and there's a bunch of different causes to it, but like people who develop stomach ulcers are basically where the epithelial tissue on the inside of the stomach gets damaged, where the mucus that's by there has sort of been, there's not enough. So your stomach acid ends up like almost, you know, corroding the inside of your stomach, which causes a lot of stomach pain. So it is quite common actually, stomach ulcers, but if you eat healthily, minimize problems as much as possible, it should be fine. Now, with the pancreas, this might be a new organ that you may have heard of before, but you're not really quite sure what it does. So it has a bunch of different tissues, but the main thing that you have to be aware of, and we're going to go into it in a bit more detail we're going to talk about one of its functions in this section, but later on in paper 1, you're going to talk about another function of the pancreas. But the main thing with the pancreas is that it secretes both hormones and it also secretes enzymes. So it actually has two types of glandular tissue. So type 1, we'll say, my handwriting's getting worse and worse. Okay. Right. So we just talked about a bunch of organs. Just as a quick recap, you've covered specialized cells earlier in year 9, and as well in Key Stage 3, so all the different types of cells that have a specific job, such as a muscle cell, nerve cell, or cells in your skin, things like that. So we have different types of cells. Then we just talked about how when different types of cells work together, you form tissue. And then when different tissues work together, you form organs. And then when organs work together, different organs work together, you form what's known as an organ system. So once again, the definitions are all pretty much the same except it's just the next level up. So different organs, instead of tissues this time, different organs working together for a specific function. So once again, these are just some examples. You should know more than these three. You should be aware of more than these three, but these are just the main three examples that you're going to go into detail on in your GCSE course. In year 10, you may have already gone into a bit more detail, but the first one in this chapter that we're talking about is the digestive system. Later on in paper 1, you're going to be talking about the circulatory and the gas exchange systems. But these are the big three, but be aware of the others. Okay, so with the digestive system, the main function of the digestive system, as I'm sure that hopefully you have a bit of background knowledge on, is that it digests. So digest, when we say digest, we mean it breaks down food, and then it also absorbs nutrients. Oops. Okay. The circulatory system, its function is to carry substances around the body. I say substances, don't be vague, like don't just say it carries blood around the body, because, well, if you just said carries blood around the body, what's the point in blood then? The main substances that it carries, so for example, it carries oxygen around the body to get to all of your cells, and carbon dioxide, that is a waste product. It carries that out for you to breathe that out. It also carries the nutrients from food around your body. Basically, because we're multicellular organisms, meaning we are made up of loads and loads of cells, in order for all of our cells to get all of the nutrients and all the important gases to be able to survive, we need to be able to have some sort of system to carry that around the body, and that is the job of the circulatory system. Next is the gas exchange system. It's also known as the respiratory system. Know both of those names because oftentimes both are used. But the main thing I'm going to refer to as is the gas exchange system, because I feel like that name is a bit better at describing what it does, because a common misconception is thinking that respiration is breathing. If you remember back in when we learned about cells, respiration is not breathing. Respiration is the chemical process that releases energy from food that uses oxygen. So when it comes to the gas exchange system, I personally don't like to call it respiratory system, because it makes people think respiration is breathing when it's not. It's just using the oxygen from breathing to release energy from food. But sorry, I've gone on a tangent. So gas exchange system, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. So it's the main system that will pretty much exchange the gases from in and out of the body. We obviously use oxygen for respiration, and after respiration, carbon dioxide that gets made, and we don't really have a use for that, so we want to remove it from the body. So our gas exchange system allows that. At the very bottom of the page, I have another example of the levels of organization. So this is just one example, but remember, you do have to know this order. Specialized cell, we start off with specialized cell. a bunch of the same type of cell working together for a specific function is a tissue, makes a tissue. When you have different tissues working together for a specific function, you have an organ. Different organs working together make an organ system. And then finally, all of the different organ systems working together combine into an organism, which is what we call a living thing. And at the very bottom, we have just an example of that. So we can start off with a specialized cell, a muscle cell. Bunch of muscle cells together make a muscle tissue. Muscle tissue combined with other types of tissue, such as nerve tissue, epithelial tissue, etc., would make an organ, such as the heart. The heart, your blood vessels, combine to make the circulatory system. And then the circulatory system with the other types of systems, such as the digestive, the gas exchange, all form the organism. So a common type of question that I want you to be able to answer is if they gave you an example such as this, but they blocked out, say, that, they left it blank, and they just had muscle cell, muscle tissue, blank, circulatory system, and then organism. I want you to be able to think about what would go into a blank. Okay? That requires you to think about what the levels of organization are and examples of each. So, when it comes to the task for today, if you go on the website, once again, the link should be, I have put it in the chat box. And you click on Lesson 1, Tissues and Organs. You should have a Word document so you can type things in instead of needing to print it out. Obviously, if you prefer writing, that's completely fine. It's up to you what you do. But if you click on it, download it, so that way you can edit it. Then you get to this task. So what I've done is I've put some keywords in the top right that you should be aware of. So an organelle, remember, is the structure inside a cell. You would have labeled plant cells and all that back in year 7. And then we have all the keywords we talked about today. So tissue, organ system. And then I've also divided the task up into core skills, intermediate skills, and advanced skills. So this is mainly just layering up on top of each other. I'd like everyone to have a go and be able to do everything. But in order for you to be able to effectively describe the levels of organization, you need to know what's inside a cell, basically. So the first task is just to label the plant and animal cell. Of course, if you're stuck, you can look up any answers and everything like that. We're going to go over the answers at the end. Intermediate skills might be a bit challenging. So what I've done is I've made this table where, like I mentioned earlier, I've taken some bits out. And I want you to fill in the blanks. Try not to use your notes as much as possible. Try to do it from memory, but obviously if you're stuck, use your notes, use the internet. But just to practice that memory, try to fill this in as best as you can without your notes to start off with, and then have a think about using your notes if you do get stuck. So I have level here, which is just the general, what is the name of that level of organization? And then examples in animals and example in plants. So for example, I have example in animals, red blood cell. Write in what level do you think that be, and then try to think of a cell, a specific example in that level for plants. And then what would the next bit be? What would the next bit be? And then for advanced skills, this is quite open-ended for you to write as much as you can. Basically, it's just what can you remember about this section. I have diagrams of different organ systems. We only went over 3 today, but like I said, be aware of the others just from background knowledge. So if you can, try to name the system in this box, the first column, I should say, sorry, and then what you know about what it does in the function box. So that is our task. I'm going to leave the stream on, but I'm going to give you guys a chance to have a little break, or if you want, you can start on the task now. But in about half an hour's time at 11 o'clock, I'm gonna leave the stream on, but I'm gonna come back to it and then start going over answers or start asking any questions. So this is just a chance now to take a break, or if you want, you can get started. Okay, I am back and will be answering any questions, helping with the task if you need help with the task. And I'll also be going over answers. Let's say we'll go with 7 minutes, and I'll go over the answers to core skills task. The first one. Okay, we'll start on the core skills tasks and then go on the intermediate section. So then you can work on that. Right. So core skills, pretty straightforward. Just label the cells based off of, it's mainly just recollection, memorizing, rather than like actually needing to think it through, really. So the first thing you should have gotten over here, is the cell membrane. In the middle is the cytoplasm, and then that spot is the nucleus. And if you notice, the plant cell also has that same spot. Just off to the side, we have the nucleus here. The plant cell has another cell structure called an organelle that we don't have, that animals don't have. On the very outside is the cell wall, but they also do have a cell membrane just on the inside of the cell wall. So if you notice, this marker right here is pointing to just on the inside of the cell wall, and that is where the plant cell membrane is. A very common mistake a lot of students make when it comes to what the function of the cell wall is like, I would say around 50% of students mistake the cell wall for something that protects the plant cell, but it doesn't do any protection. It's got actually a bunch of holes in it where it's really easy for things like bacteria and viruses to get through. The main source of protection is the cell membrane, because that is what lets things in and out the cell. The cell wall just gives the plant cell its shape, and that is its main function. It just gives the plant cell its shape and sort of acts almost like a skeleton structure, like a strong skeleton structure to be able for it to retain water without bursting. Okay, another thing that plants have that we don't is the chloroplast. That is the part that does the photosynthesis, where it makes sugars from raw materials. And then in the middle bit here, the jelly in the middle is the cytoplasm. And this large space in the middle is the vacuole, which is the storage space. Okay, now on to the intermediate skills task. I'll do the first one with you guys just to hopefully help with what you have to do after. So on the left side here where it says level, that is the general level of organization. If we look back on our notes, it's this bit here that I'm referring to. The level of organization, what is that level called? Is it a tissue? Is it an organ? Is it an organ system? Is it an organism? So, at the very base level, it is a specialized cell. And if I look at the example section, I notice that the example is a red blood cell. So I do know, okay, yes, that level is probably talking about specialized cells. Now I'm trying to think of an example in plants. Tom actually thought of the example earlier, but think back to any sort of plant cell that you remember. You know, one thing that you would have learned about in the cells topic at the very start of your biology GCSE. Examples you can think of is a root hair cell. Or any type of other cells in a plant, such as xylem cell, phloem cell, xylem cell, phloem cell. If you have written something else down, let me know, and you're not sure of whether or not be correct, just let me know. So, what would be the next level up that I write here then? Beth, what do you think I should write there? Where I've done a circle or oval. The next one up from specialized cell. Yeah, spot on. And then you just have to think of an example that would go in animals. Loads of examples if we look back on our notes. So you can have muscle, glandular, epithelial, or you can even go beyond our notes and talk about nervous tissue or things like that. I'll just write one, or epithelial, glandular. Ran out of space. Okay. Next one up, the level they've already given me, so I just need to come up with some examples in animals and plants now. So you can think of any specific organ in the human body, and, you know, I'll go with, say, the stomach, or let's say lungs. Now, plants actually have organs as well. They have, they don't have as many organs as we do. So there are some options that you could have. You could say the root organ, You could say the stem. You could say the leaf. You could also say flower if the plant does have a flower. But those are the main plant organs. And then next one up, have a think about what it might be, come up with some examples. So the next one up is the organ system. We talked about some ones in animals, digestive. With plants, it's a little bit difficult. You did talk about it when you did your cells topic, but for like water transport system, which is sort of like the plant circulatory system in a way. And then the next level up, the final level, is the organism. Example in animals, we'll go with human or dog. And then example in plants, the plant. Okay. Any questions about, yes, plants do have a gas exchange system. Well done, Fionn. Spot on. Yeah, gas exchange system as well, because they obviously take in the carbon dioxide and let out oxygen. I wouldn't put just animal in there because that's not specific enough, because it says example in animals, and then just writing animal as an example of an animal would be not as specific. Reproductive system would definitely work for an organ system. So write that, reproductive. And then gas exchange, which is what Fionn said. Okay. Any other questions on the intermediate skills where you have an answer but you're not sure if it would work or if it would fit? Okay, let's move on then. Right, advanced skills. So just from looking at the picture, I see a heart, I see blood vessels going through the body, so I recognize that as the circulatory system. And that carries substances. If you want to be more specific, you can say oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, also carries hormones. Oops. Around the body. Just for you guys to be aware of, if you're ever asked to sort of give the function of the circulatory system, it wouldn't be enough just to say it carries oxygen around the body, because it carries so much more. Red blood cells specifically do carry the oxygen, but all the nutrients, also that, you know, when you digest and absorb food, in order for all your cells to get all of that, those nutrients from the food, they also get carried around by the circulatory system. So you don't have to worry about, like, you know, listing every single example, but just be aware that if you just said carried oxygen around the body, it wouldn't really be, you know, a clear enough answer, because it's only just one small part of the circulatory system that you'd be talking about. Right, the next system, I see a pair of lungs. So I'm identifying that as the gas exchange system, or you could say respiratory. And the main function is, well, the exchange of gases, basically. Mainly oxygen and carbon dioxide. If you want to be really fancy, you could even give the chemical symbols of those. I'll put it as oxygen comes in O2. They come in pairs. Carbon dioxide is CO2. Then I see the intestines, I see the stomach. So that is the digestive system. Don't just say breaks down food. Once again, that is only half of what it does. The other half of what it does, it also absorbs the nutrients. If you remember back from Key Stage 3, you would learn that small intestine is the one that absorbs the nutrients into the body. So the digestive system isn't just breaking down the food. Also remember that it does absorb all the food that you've just broken down. So it has those two main parts to it. Then we have, I see the skeleton, the skeletal system, also known as the locomotor, because it helps with movement. There's quite a few things. Structure, movement. And then I see a brain, and then this is this long thing here is the spinal cord. This is the nervous system. And it controls the body. And the reproductive system is actually not on here, but there are so many organ systems in the body, but reproductive is a type of system. So if you ever listed it as an example, then that would be completely correct. Okay, so next lesson, which is going to be on in a week's time, but one thing you can do in preparation for that is, since I already have all the resources on here on the website, and you do have the notes organizer just to help you know what you are required to learn, because if you just look through Kerboodle, the textbook, it can be a bit overwhelming because there's so much writing, there's so many different sections where you don't really know how to trim it down to, okay, what do I actually need to know here? I have redone all of my booklets that I've originally had planned to make it based off of Kerboodle, so you can actually go on to Kerboodle, log in. Remember, in the first login, your username is going to be your first initial and then your last name. So for example, John Smith would be J Smith. If your name is really common, if your first initial last name is really common, you might have to put a 1 at the end of your username, and your password is going to be the same. Those instructions are also on Show My Homework as well, but I have organized these notes organizers to be able to be based off of Kerboodle, so you can extract information from the Kerboodle textbook and cut out all the extra bits and just be able to do what you need to know. So next lesson, what we're going to be doing is talking about the digestive system structure. So if you want to do any prep work from that, such as Seneca, taking your own notes through Kerboodle as best you can, and then I can explain it further just to make sure that you fully understand what you're doing. That's completely fine. But we're going to be talking about the structure of the digestive system, where everything is, and all of the different processes that go on through the digestive system, sort of the journey of food as it goes through. So there's quite a bit of information we have to get through next lesson. So if you want to do any sort of prep work, I do recommend that. And then, so in our session, it'll mainly be consolidation. And in the task that I've set for you, it's on lesson 2, the digestive system. And there's 2 tasks actually. One is on the main structure, which is on the left side, the digestive system docx, and then one specifically on absorption, just for you to understand the process of absorption. And then you can have a go at that as best as you can, and then obviously, naturally, I'll go over the answers. Are we all right with that? Or are there any questions? Does everyone here have access to Kerboodle? Okay, if you are stuck at all with accessing Kerboodle, just look back at the instructions on Show My Homework. If it's not working at all, you may have to contact Wydean's help desk so they can reset your password. That's helpdesk@wydean.gloss.sch.uk. Right, Beth, I'm going to type in the email. Because when I log into Kerboodle, because I have a teacher account, unfortunately when I log in, it doesn't come up with I see your account on there, I see your username, but I can't, I don't have an option to reset your password or anything. But it does tell me that the school's who the school administrator is, and it's actually the main school, not just Mr. Greenslade, because we have Kerboodle for other departments as well. So if you email help desk, hopefully they'll be able to reset your password for you, or at least forward your request to somebody who can. And I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to reset it for you. Okay, so we're gonna finish a bit early today. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and washing your hands and everything, but still getting a little bit of exercise, and take care.